charged with 6 federal crimes. He pleaded guilty to obstruction of an official proceeding and entering a building with a dangerous weapon. He admitted carrying bear spray into the Capitol complex during the formal certification of the Electoral College votes on January 6th. Lawyers on both sides agreed that a prison sentence is appropriate, a prison sentence of between 3.5 years and 4.5 years if he cooperates, which he has agreed to do. This is incredible, right? He has agreed that he should go to prison for 3.5 to 4.5 years. It's incredible. The Justice Department is heralding this plea, which comes exactly 100 days after the Capitol attack. Thank you so much for joining us. You can watch Outfront anytime on CNN Go. Thanks for watching. AC360 starts now.
There is no way in good conscience to use the word good evening tonight, though there are many words to choose from. Mournful, tearful, and yes, as a country, shameful. Good is simply not one of them, not after what happened overnight. When we began this program last night, we noted that between the police killing of Daunte Wright, the trial of Derek Chauvin, and the police shooting of a 7th grader, it was, in so many words, a lot. Then, late last night, a gunman opened fire at a FedEx facility in Indianapolis. 8 people were killed, an old former employee. Several others were wounded or hurt. Countless more tonight are living the nightmare of losing someone close, and the toll extends beyond the victims and their next of kin. Now, this we know from experience. The shock waves, they ripple out over time and distance. 14 years ago tonight, the country was reeling from the loss of 32 lives on the campus of Virginia Tech University. Do you remember that shooting? A month ago, we were watching the horrible images come in from 2 mass shootings in and around Atlanta. Seems a long time ago, doesn't it? The sad fact is, though, that mass shootings have become so common, it may soon be hard for one not to fall on the anniversary of another. This is a map of mass shootings in just the last month, which we're defining as 4 or more people shot, wounded, or killed, excluding the gunman. One other thing to note, there is only room on the map to show a little less than half. The full count, again, over just a single month since the Atlanta shootings is 45. And the map, as profound as it might be, doesn't do justice to the story. It doesn't capture the horror. It doesn't capture the wounds and the deaths of so many Americans. The map doesn't tell the story of the 5 people who were shot and wounded on March 17th in Stockton, California, or the 4 shot in Gresham, Oregon, a day later. In Houston on the 20th, 5 shot at a nightclub. That same day in Dallas, 8 people shot and 1 killed. In Philadelphia that night, someone opened fire at a party, killing 1 and wounding 5. At least 150 others fled for their lives. Then on March 22nd in Boulder, a gunman opened fire at a supermarket, killing 10, including a local police officer.
The consequences of all this are deeper than I suspect we know. By that I mean the mental consequences, the feeling of, anyway, it's just been through too many of these.
Just 3 nights later, 2 gunmen opened fire outside a bar in Philadelphia, wounding 7. That same night, 5 were shot and 3 killed in Memphis. 3 shootings in Virginia Beach left 8 wounded and 2 dead. 4 wounded that night in Norfolk. 2 gunmen killed 1 and wounded 7 in Chicago. That was all on the 26th of March. The next day, in River Gorge, Illinois, a mass shooting on a party bus killed 1, wounded 3. At a nightclub in Yazoo City, Mississippi, a shooter wounded 6, and that afternoon, 4 people were shot in Chicago. In Essex, Maryland, on March 28th, a man fatally shot his parents before shooting 3 people at a convenience store, killing 2 of them. That day in Chicago, another 4 shot and wounded on a highway, and in Cleveland, 7 people shot at a nightclub. One time, one night in America. Except it wasn't. 5 shot, 2 killed in D.C. on the 31st. 4 killed at an office complex in Orange, California. 1 of the victims, a 9-year-old boy. On April 3rd, 7 wounded near a nightclub in Quincy, Florida. 5 wounded in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. 3 killed and 4 others hurt at a party in Wilmington, North Carolina. 4 shot the next day, Easter, in Beaumont, Texas. And in Birmingham, Alabama, an argument spiraled out of control. More than 30 shots fired at a local park. 1 killed, 5 wounded, including 4 children. In Monroe, Louisiana, that same night, 6 shot and wounded at a local bar. April 5th, 5 shot and wounded in Baltimore, 1 killed, 3 wounded on the 6th in Detroit, 2 shot, 2 killed on the 7th in Milwaukee. Also that day in Rock Hill, South Carolina, a former NFL player killed 5 people. You probably remember that one, including a prominent doctor, his wife, and their 2 young grandchildren.
I've lived in Rock Hill my entire life, and Dr. Leslie was my doctor growing up. So that's how this is kind of a little hard on me. But Dr. Leslie has been one of those people that everybody knows.
Everybody knows him. Now he's dead. Sheriff's office spokesman speaking there. His boss, the sheriff said, saying there's nothing about this right now that makes sense to any of us. April 7th, Rock Hill, South Carolina. On the 8th, in Bryan, Texas, a gunman killed 1, wounded 5 others at a cabinet manufacturer. Said one worker who at first walked toward the popping noises, which she thought were from machinery malfunctioning. I started walking and someone grabbed me and said, "No, we need to run." And thankfully, they did. April 8th, on the job in Bryan, Texas. On the 9th, in Fort Worth, 1 killed, 5 injured during a shootout on the freeway. 4 shot, wounded on the 10th in Allendale, Michigan. 4 shot and wounded in Waterbury, Connecticut. 1 killed, 3 others wounded at a convenience store in Missouri. 1 killed and 3 wounded in Memphis. In Seattle, April 11th, a toddler and 3 others hit by gunfire in a parking lot. In the following 4 days, 10 more people would be killed and at least 25 wounded in 6 more mass shootings, including the latest one overnight. Barring drastic changes or a miracle, it will not be the last. And in as little as a few days, perhaps it won't even be the latest. But it's where we begin with CNN's Miguel Marquez.
In less than a couple of minutes,
He just appeared to randomly start shooting.
8 more lives lost in America's latest mass shooting.
He was firing in the open, and I immediately ducked down and got scared. And my friend's mother, she came in and told us to get inside the car.
We heard 3 more shots, and then my buddy Levi saw someone running out of the building, and then more shots went off.
The suspect, officers say, has been identified as a 19-year-old man who was a former employee at this FedEx. They say he entered the sprawling facility near the Indianapolis airport just after 11 p.m. last night. After opening fire in the parking lot, killing 4, he killed another 4 inside. 7 more injured in the rampage.
He got out of his car and pretty quickly started some random shooting outside the facility. There was no confrontation with anyone that was there. There was no disturbance. There was no argument.
Police say he used at least 1 rifle. They responded within minutes to what they described as a chaotic crime scene, but the gunman had already killed himself inside the building.
I'm a little overwhelmed.
The FBI is assisting local police in searching the gunman's home and car. CNN has learned he was known to federal and local officials after a family member reached out to them, warning of a potential for violence.
We've recently identified him, so now the work really begins trying to establish some of that and see if we can figure out some sort of motive in this, but we don't have that right now.
Family members of victims and those who worked at the facility gathered at a nearby hotel as police work to identify the victims. The facility, the second largest hub in FedEx's global network with more than 4,500 employees. In a statement, FedEx said the company is deeply shocked and saddened by the loss of our team members.
Nothing we learn can heal the wounds of those who escaped with their lives, but who will now bear the scars and endure the memories of this horrific crime.
Miguel Marquez joins us now, not far from the scene. So what more do we know about the interactions the shooter had with federal law enforcement in the past?
Yeah, we know back in March of 2020, the shooter's mother called police here in Indianapolis and said that he had the potential, he wanted to commit suicide by cop, essentially. Police came around, they checked everything out. They confiscated a shotgun at the time. It also prompted something they saw in the house or in his room, prompted them to contact FBI. They interviewed him a month later. They found no evidence of sort of extremism, religious or violence of any sort, so they dropped the case, but he kept the gun. Then they did not give the gun back. But now the question will be, where did this gun come from? How did he get it? And could all of this have been prevented? Anderson?
Miguel Marquez, thank you. Ali Brown is a member of the Indianapolis City County Council. She joins us now. Councilor Brown, thank you for joining us. When you woke up this morning, heard another mass shooting had taken place, what did you think?
I was shocked. I was shocked and I was saddened. This is the 3rd mass shooting that we've had in Indianapolis this year. I was heartbroken and then I was angry because this is the 3rd mass shooting we've had in Indianapolis this year. and it seems that we can't stop it.
Would you be surprised if this happened again in Indianapolis 3 months from now?
I don't want to say that I would be surprised. I'm just saddened and I'm shocked. And we live in a culture where there's too many people who have too many needs and have the ability to access guns instead of accessing mental health care or other assistance they need. So I'm afraid that it might.
What are you hearing from people in your community tonight?
You know, people here in Indianapolis they're frightened. They're scared. They're sad. Saddened is definitely a big thing. You could feel it everywhere today. We always say, you know, you always feel like this can't happen here. This has now happened here 3 times this year. We had a school shooting here. We're coming up on the 3rd anniversary in Noblesville, just north of us. You know, we should acknowledge that this does happen here. And we have to do better in trying to stop it. But people are hurt. We're Indiana. Indianapolis is a big city. There's 1 million people here, but it feels like a small town. And everybody knows somebody who works out at one of the FedEx plants. So it's a real hard day.
You know, and again, these are early reports, but from what Miguel was saying, it sounds like, you know, some member of the family of this particular shooter, you know, reached out to law enforcement. They did the right thing. They raised their concerns to law enforcement, and this person was on the radar of federal, local officials, and yet still this happened. What needs to be fixed?
Well, Indiana has some of the most lax gun laws in the country. But one thing we do have is the red flag law. So that's what went into effect when his family member called, the police investigated, and they were able to take away his weapon a year ago. The problem is that in Indiana, you only have to do background checks when purchasing a weapon at a gun store. There is a loophole, we call it the gun show loophole, where you can buy a gun at a gun show without any background check. You can buy a gun person to person. You can go on Facebook and find a gun and not even have to show ID. It's harder to get a vaccine in Indiana than it is to get a gun, because at least you have to show ID for that. So no matter how proactive the police can be, without being able to close those loopholes, where 70% of Indiana gun owners support closing those loopholes, the gun show loophole, we can't do anything to stop somebody who's had their guns removed from going around and getting it some other way.
Do you think this shooting will change anything?
I hope so. I hope so. It's, you know, this is something that a lot of us have lived with the majority of our life. I was in 8th grade when Columbine happened. 14 years ago, I was in college when Virginia Tech happened. And I was a teacher when Newtown happened. And surely when a bunch of kindergartners were massacred in their classroom, we thought something would happen. But as you stated, as you went over those numbers, the hundreds and hundreds of people who have died, I don't know what it's going to take. I've called on our state legislature. As an Indianapolis counselor, they've taken away our ability to do any kind of gun laws in our city. We can't protect our own people. So we need our state legislators to do something about this. We need our federal legislators. We need Senator Braun and Senator Young to back up H.R. 8 on that universal background checks. We need this. Our police are asking for it. Until we do something, until we step up and say enough is enough, we're not going to be able to do anything here.
Councilor Brown, I appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Next, more on the politics of trying to, if not end, then at least limit gun violence and what the president plans to do about it. Later, a live report from Chicago where protesters have gathered in the wake of the police shooting of a 13-year-old. And later tonight, Marjorie Taylor Greene, the QAnon-curious congresswoman's latest effort, reviving an old movement with racist roots to push for what she is calling the, quote, Anglo-Saxon political tradition.
I look for the WELL Health Safety Seal at my favorite places.
It means health and safety measures have met rigorous scientific standards.
Look for the WELL Seal.
Look for the WELL Health Safety Seal outside and feel safer going inside.
Out here, you're more than just a landowner. You're a gardener, a landscaper, a hunter. Because you didn't settle for ordinary. Same goes for your equipment. Versatile, powerful, durable Kubota equipment. More goes into it, so you get more out of it.
The Italians have had me on the run for 3 solid months. It's time to take Harlem back.
Johnson don't control Harlem.
He's gonna be dead by the end of the day. Bumpy has turned into a liability. Assassins, Corsicans, the French Connection. I'm willing to fight them tooth and nail for every inch of Harlem. New world is here, my brothers.
Because of the research that I've started to do on Ancestry, with documents, with photographs, I get to define myself through the scores of people who led to me.
Bring your family history to life like never before. Get started for free at Ancestry.com.
It's only a matter of time until your check engine light comes on, or worse yet, your car needs repair. That could mean a big surprise auto repair bill. Those repairs are more expensive than ever. A new engine can be over $5,000. A new transmission over $4,000. That's why it's so important you call CarShield today. CarShield is the #1 auto protection company in the country.
I liked CarShield because they were reliable, they were affordable, and they were trustworthy.
Well, I think everybody should have CarShield. Once your manufacturer's warranty is expired, there's just no big bills. If we needed repairs, CarShield was there for us.
Now it's your turn to get the peace of mind that comes with having CarShield, so you can worry less about auto repairs. Call or go online right now to get CarShield for yourself. Friendly, knowledgeable, money-saving representatives are available 24 hours a day. So if your car is 20 years old or newer, just tell us the make and model of your car or truck to get an instant plan quote. In a matter of minutes, you can be covered.
I was elated that I had CarShield. I was more than happy.
It's no fun when you have a car and it's broken and you can't pay for it to get it fixed.
Here's how CarShield works. When your car needs repair, you take it to your favorite mechanic or even your dealer, and CarShield gets them paid directly. That's why CarShield is America's #1 auto protection provider.
CarShield is just the best thing to take away the fear that when something is going to go wrong with your car, because it will, and CarShield is going to be there to back you up.
My experience with CarShield is that they absolutely come through every time I need them.
If my car breaks down, I can count on CarShield to cover it for me. CarShield definitely has my back.
Now it's the time to make the smart choice and protect yourself from sky-high auto repair bills. Call now for a free and instant protection plan quote. It's only a matter of time until repairs are needed, and once your car breaks down, it's too late.
Call 1-800-915-9597 or go to carshield.com. Get covered today.
It's hard to believe that Mint Mobile can be good at just $15 a month. So, as Mint's new owner, I brought in one of our first and oldest customers, Wasim McNaby.
Welcome to Mint, Ryan.
So you've had Mint for years. Any issues?
No, the service has been great.
And under my ownership, it's going to get even better.
How?
No idea.
Still $15 a month though, right?
Yep.
How about Taco Wednesday? Nobody's done that before.
We're in a familiar place tonight discussing a sadly familiar subject. So is President Biden, who joins every president dating back to the 1980s and having to deal with the modern phenomenon of Americans targeting other Americans in large numbers.
This has to end. It's a national embarrassment. It is a national embarrassment what's going on. And it's not only these mass shootings that are occurring. Every single day, there's a mass shooting in the United States if you count all those who were killed out on the streets of our cities and our rural areas. It's a national embarrassment and must come to an end.
Join us now on the politics of what to do about it. CNN chief political analyst Gloria Borger and CNN senior political commentator David Axelrod, who saw moments like these from the inside during the Obama administration. Gloria, President Biden rejected the idea that his administration has prioritized infrastructure over dealing with guns, arguing he can work on more than one thing at a time. But in terms of political capital, oftentimes it's got to be focused.
It does have to be focused. And you could just hear the frustration in the president's voice. And David remembers this as well as I do, that after Newtown, Joe Biden was put in charge of getting some form of gun reform legislation through the Congress by then President Obama. And I heard the same frustration from him then, and he did not succeed. He tried to get universal background checks. He tried to do even more than that, and he could not do it. And here we are all these years later, and he is saying exactly the same thing. Now he's president, yes. Now he has an agenda, yes. But I think he's right. I think you can do more than one thing at a time. And we don't know yet whether the ground has shifted a bit. The NRA has been having its own problems. The Democrats control both the House and the Senate. Will they be able to get some kind of a compromise that, yes, may be a little bit narrower than what Democrats want, but will they finally be able to do something? And will the President of the United States say enough is enough, and maybe we have to end the filibuster so not everything takes 60 votes to get through the Congress?
David, will anything, I mean, you've seen this from the inside. What did you learn?
I learned to be very deeply skeptical about whether things can get done, and I talked to Democrats and Republicans in the Senate today, Anderson, and neither side at this juncture can count to 10 Republicans to support a gun bill. Joe Manchin tried in 2013 after Newtown to make all commercial sales of guns subject to background checks. He did it in a bipartisan basis with Senator Toomey, and it got, I think, 54 votes. That was the effort that Joe Biden was involved in then. And even though the polls are overwhelming on this, the politics haven't changed. This has become sort of a cultural issue for the right. It's a bit like masks. It's freedom versus public health. And they haven't really shifted much on this. So, it is numbing to be sitting here with you again talking about these stories. They come so fast that you can barely remember last week's mass shooting. But the politics is not shifting, and I am not optimistic that a compromise will be reached. Chris Murphy, the senator from Connecticut, is working hard, apparently, to find a compromise. I do think that the White House is spending most of its political capital on the infrastructure plan. That is the biggest thing in front of them right now, and I think Joe Biden has a realistic sense of what's doable here.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Gloria, David talked about, Chris Murphy, the lead sponsor of the background check bill in the Senate. He said he's open to compromise on this. He says he's been talking to Republicans for several weeks, but again, swaying enough Republicans to get a version of his bill passed is, not easy.
It's difficult. It's difficult. And the problem is that Republicans over these years have become more and more dug in. As David points out, guns have become a cultural issue. If you say you want to do universal background checks and 90% of the public says, yeah, okay, we think that's a great idea, you have a large group of Republicans who see that as somehow taking away their Second Amendment rights, taking away their freedom, which is the key word here. We hear it used with masks, as David points out. And somehow this becomes an issue that Republicans can run on. I mean, remember after Parkland, Donald Trump was saying, oh, yeah, we're going to get something done on gun reform, right? He had all the parents in. They met with him in the White House. And what did he do? Some regulatory ban on bump stocks after he met with the NRA.
Yeah.
Didn't do anything.
Anderson, we should point out that even in this week, the state house in Texas voted to do away with permits to carry a gun. This was just passed recently in Tennessee. In Texas, the law now says you have to have a permit to carry a gun, concealed or unconcealed, and you have to go through training, and you have to have your fingerprints taken. This law would do away with all of that. This is in the face of all of what we've seen. So that tells you where the temperature is among the right on this issue.
Yeah. Gloria Borger, David Axelrod, thank you. Appreciate it. Chicago also grieving tonight. Protesters angry over the police shooting of 13-year-old Adam Toledo, taking to the streets. They question whether the video of the shooting shows an officer justified in his actions. We'll have a live report from Chicago when we come back.
At Fidelity, you'll work with an advisor to help you build a flexible wealth plan. You'll have access to tax-smart investing strategies. And with brokerage accounts, online trades are commission-free. Personalized advice, unmatched value. At Fidelity, you can have both.
Jamaica. best decision ever.
Feel the sand between your toes and the gentle waves of the sea on your skin. Feel the warm Jamaican breeze lift your spirits and nourish your soul. Escape to exactly what makes your heart beat. You will love every moment. Jamaica, heartbeat of the world. Let's go.
So who climbs ladders to clean their gutters?
Dad, I keep telling you it's dangerous.
Climbing ladders is too dangerous. Leaf Filter puts an end to that.
So how does it work?
Leaf Filter's three-piece system filters out leaves and debris, letting water flow through freely.
Do we need to replace our gutters?
Great question. Leaf Filter could be installed right on top of your existing gutters.
We're sold.
Call 833-LEAF FILTER or go to getleaffilter.com for your free gutter inspection and estimate.
The world around you may seem like an immovable, implacable place. It is not. It can be bright, quiet, and safe. It's a change that'll be felt from this street to no street, and everywhere in between. All it takes is the slightest push in just the right place, and that will be the tipping point that changes everything.
I look for the WELL Health Safety Seal at my favorite places.
It means health and safety measures have met rigorous scientific standards.
Look for the WELL seal.
Look for the WELL Health Safety Seal outside and feel safer going inside.
We put a lot of stress on our feet. It's no wonder they ache. Introducing ArchFit from Skechers. ArchFit distributes pressure across the arch, providing balance and support to make walking more comfortable. They're machine washable and available for men and women. ArchFit, new from Skechers.
Conversations. Sometimes you agree, and sometimes you don't. Conversations can create change. Let's talk.
A new season of United Shades of America with W. Kamau Bell premieres May 2nd at 10 on CNN.
My teeth were hurting. I knew there was something that had to get done.
It's your mouth, but you feel bad from head to toe. It really hurts.
It's not just a pretty smile, it's your health.
When I found Clear Choice, everything changed right there and then.
Getting dental implants makes all the difference.
That was the new beginning for me, for a long, healthy life.
Remember their love, not the spots they leave behind. With the Bissell ProHeat 2X Revolution Pet Pro, it removes stains, odors, and allergens, even the toughest set and messes. That's why it's our best deep cleaning system for pet messes.
See? All better.
Whatever stage of pet parenthood you're in, Bissell helps you live in the moment, not the mess.
I'm Phil Mattingly at the White House, and this is CNN.
Protests in Chicago tonight after the release of video that shows the final moments in the life of 13-year-old Adam Toledo. The video of the police shooting has stirred intense debate there and across the nation about whether the officer was justified. Martin Savage joins us now from Chicago. So what has been the reaction from the community to the body cam footage which was released just yesterday?
Well, let me show it to you. Anderson is playing out right now on the streets of Chicago. This is Milwaukee Avenue. This began at Logan Square. There are thousands of people, and the crowd has continued to grow. It is not just the death of Adam Toledo that has brought them out in the streets. His is one death of many that they believe, people who died at the hands of Chicago police and died wrongfully. In many cases, this crowd believes that they were murdered by police, much in the way that many of them see the death of Adam Toledo. So this protest is only just now getting started. The reactions, though, are still very, very visceral. Many people here cannot believe that they watched the death of a 13-year-old. We warn you, what you're about to see is hard to watch.
This is the moment when police killed 13-year-old Adam Toledo. Newly released body cam video showing the officer, identified as Eric Stillman, firing one shot as Toledo raised his hands in the air. Police say this image shows Toledo was holding a gun before Stillman shot him. And they say that gun was found nearby after the shooting. But look closer. When Toledo raised his hands, he did not appear to be holding anything. Police say that Toledo was holding the gun less than a second before he raised his hands. The family's attorney says they won't know if what Toledo had in his hands was a gun until she has the video forensically analyzed, but says it doesn't change what happened.
That child complied. Adam complied with the officer's request, dropped the gun, turned around. The officer saw his hands were up and pulled the trigger.
Officer Stillman's lawyer says the officer was left with no other option and that he feels horrible about the outcome. But he was well within his justification of using deadly force.
That officer had 0.8 of a second to determine if that weapon was still in his hand or not. The officer does not have to wait to be shot at or shot in order to respond and defend himself.
Police say that they were responding to alerts of shots fired in the early morning hours of March 29th. Surveillance video appears to show someone shooting toward a car. The new body cam video shows the chase that ensued moments after officers arrived on the scene. Prosecutors are now charging a 21-year-old man with Toledo at the beginning of the encounter. They say the gun recovered at the scene of Toledo's killing matched the shell casings found at the first location where the car was fired on, and that Toledo's hands and gloves dropped by the older suspect tested positive for gunshot residue. The White House today called the new video chilling.
Too often in this country, law enforcement uses unnecessary force, too often resulting in the death of Black and brown Americans. The president, again, has repeatedly said that he believes we need police reform.
Martin, we also learned new information about how long it took for Adam Toledo's family to hear what happened to him from authorities.
Right, according to authorities and the family, they say it was 2.5 days before the family of Adam Toledo was notified of the boy's death. The reason for that, they say, was that Toledo did not have any identification on him at the time, and also the other man who was taken in custody who was with him apparently gave the wrong identification. So it's just one more tragedy that is compounding both the sadness and the anger felt on the streets of Chicago tonight.
Martin Savage, appreciate it. Thank you. I want to get perspective now on the officer's actions from Dr. Charles Morgan, a neuroscientist who teaches forensic science at the University of New Haven. He's an associate professor at Yale University's Department of Psychiatry. Thanks so much for being with us. When it comes to a police officer, like you see in the video from Chicago, who is in a foot chase, for any officer, what happens to a person's brain in a situation like that, and how does training impact the decisions they might make?
Thank you for having me. You know, it's a great question. We all have brains. Police officers' brains are like ours. And I like to show people when I go to court and testify, this is our brain, but this is not our brain under stress. When you're under stress and under threat, you no longer have the part of your brain where you do critical thinking. You're really left with this part of your brain. And that part of your brain is really early, and it's programmed to let you freeze, run, or fight. It's our fight-flight response.
What is that part of the brain called?
That part of the brain is called the amygdala.
Okay.
And it's a center of the brain that identifies the world only in black and white terms. Something is a danger or it's not. And in those split seconds, you either run, you freeze, or you fight. And we train police officers not to run away. If they freeze, they die. And so they move at threats like military folks. So it's a terrible incident, but it is both unreasonable from a neurobiological perspective and unfair to expect a police officer in 0.8 of a second to stop when they've initiated an activity to defend themselves.
I've been in situations where my adrenaline was, at the highest volume imaginable in very, some dangerous situations. And I was not I knew I was not thinking, well, I didn't know in the moment, but I was not thinking clearly. I was not responding. I was hearing things differently than they were actually sounding. You're saying that's essentially what happens, that it's a very primitive part of your brain that's in play.
Oh, absolutely. Sometimes under stress, sounds go away, you get tunnel vision. Those are all side effects of a turnover of a chemical called glutamate in our brain, but it's a side effect of having a high rush of adrenaline and cortisol in our brain. And you're absolutely right. We all don't get smarter under stress. I always tell my friends, I just get stupid faster than other people under stress, but we all lose an ability to think coolly, calmly, and think through things when we're under a high adrenaline.
But
so that part of our brain just doesn't function.
Right. The science is fascinating, but in reality, police officers are going to be under stress. This is an incredibly stressful job, just as anybody, this can be anybody under tremendous stress. So how does training come into play here?
Personally, I think training for police officers needs to take into account how we think and function under stress as humans. We resort to what we know and what we've done by habit. So most training really emphasizes, moving at a threat, using a weapon, things like that. And under stress, that's what people resort to. So perhaps training could begin with more activity based on de-escalation and something not as threatening, not as lethal, and then adding that training later. Because the decisions that police departments make right now are in response to the threats they perceive. And unfortunately, as you know, guns are available, right? So the police feel they have to respond to threat. But I think training should take some of what we know from neuroscience into account. But we do have to ask ourselves in society, what do we want from our police? Because it's unreasonable to expect them in those moments to suddenly stop and think and do Monday morning second guessing, right?
Well, also, I mean, when you see that video, and I mean, it's horrific no matter how you view it, the amount of time we're talking about here, I mean, it's all happening so fast, from them showing up on the scene to the chase to, him yelling at the kid to freeze. And then from the time, he turns around, it's just, they say it's a second from the time they believe he had a weapon in his hand to being shot.
And it's kind of unfair. It happens so fast, but in today's technology, we freeze a frame and you see it. And the one way we think is, we call it a vividness bias. We see something and then it's striking and it's vivid and we can see it in our mind, and we give it an enormous amount of weight, and we stop thinking about it in context. So this happens in the blink of an eye from the officer's perspective, right? He's running, he's chasing, he says, drop it. And the child turns, and in that split second, it's impossible to know whether he's dropped a gun, does he have a gun, but he's turning and it's a threat. But with the technology, and they slow it down and you see the image, we sit back and look at it and go, oh, he could have stopped. But it's just not true in real life.
Interesting. I would like to continue this discussion at some point, because it's fascinating what you do, and fascinating just learning about how the brain, our brains actually change what we would normally do or could possibly do. Dr. Charles Morgan, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Up next, what Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene says she is now planning with some like-minded members of Congress, and how there's some immediate pushback from her own party. Details when we come back.
Renee is not an influencer. She's more of a groundbreaker. Renee runs with us on a John Deere 1 Series tractor. Because out here, you can't fake a job well done. Hear Renee's story at Deere.com.
Call 1-800-SANDALS.
With relapsing forms of MS, there's a lot to deal with. Not just unpredictable relapses, all these other things too. Who needs that kind of drama? Kesimpta is a once-monthly at-home injection that may help you put this RMS drama in its place. Kesimpta was proven superior at reducing the rate of relapses, active lesions, and slowing disability progression versus Aubagio. Don't take Kesimpta if you have hepatitis B, and tell your doctor if you have had it, as it could come back. Kesimpta can cause serious side effects, including infections. While no cases of PML were reported in RMS clinical trials, it could happen. Tell your doctor if you had or plan to have vaccines, or if you are or plan to become pregnant. Kesimpta may cause a decrease in some types of antibodies. The most common side effects are upper respiratory tract infection, headache, and injection reactions.